Ja, Minna, Carl from Purple Misplaced. Today I'm taking a look at this new game that just came out at the most recent Tokyo Game Market, Spring 2023, My Toroko Town, or My Trolley Town, or more realistically, My Minecart Town or My Train Car Town, from designers Shun and Aya, and self-published through their own studio GG. This is a sort of resource management, tile laying kind of game in which you're sort of following a series of products through their entire life cycle, building a village that has locations that produce specific resources, and then developing a sort of transportation network to get those resources to the right places, to convert them into different resources, and ultimately into goods that can be sold at market for points. No disclaimer needed here because this is one that I picked up on my most recent trip to Japan. As you can see, lots of them coming up as well. Let's head down to the table to see how the solo mode for this one plays, and then I'll meet you back up top to let you know what I think. To set up a solo game of My Toroko Town, begin by placing out the game board. Next, you need to set up all of the different tiles that will make up the market in the game. To start with, up here at the top of the board, we're going to be placing out the curved tracks, the straight tracks, and these sort of combined tracks. But it's actually worth noting while doing that the combined tracks are actually on the back of both the straight pieces as well as on the back of the curved track pieces. So we'll place out a number of curved pieces, a number of straight pieces, and then flipping over some of them to make a stack of the combined pieces. Next, seating the main section down here with A, B, and these sort of V buildings. Or maybe a gamma, I'm not really sure what that letter is. We're going to begin by shuffling each of those stacks, placing them face up in a stack on the appropriate space. So A goes there, and B goes right here. And then finally for those V buildings, there are two slots here, so I'm going to separate these into two separate stacks of 6 tiles. Of course, after shuffling that stack, and I will place those 2 stacks also face up on the board. Like that. Then in the center here is the sort of standard base buildings that will always be placed out in every game. However, differently from the multiplayer game, for the solo game, we're going to be placing out 7 total tiles in this area. So officially, based on the solo rules, you're allowed to choose any 7 buildings of these 6 that you'd like to place out. Noting that this sort of reuse building is only used in 4-player games. But other than that, the rules suggest a few different sort of suggested setups, and for this playthrough I will be using what they call the balance setup. So we're going to be putting out 2 of these fields, 2 of these grasslands, 1 charcoal kiln, 1 bread store, and 1 of these sort of ranches like this. And you'll notice that in this one spot where there's more than 1 tile of a single type that has a single spot on the board, the second tile is actually face down in this sort of grayed out configuration. And what that means is, and you'll see this come out in gameplay, but I will not be able to build 2 of these in a single round of the game. These 2 are the same, but there are 2 spots for them, so I could potentially buy both of those in 1 round. Next, we're going to set up my sort of player area. And to start the game, our village has pretty much nothing in it. We're going to start with 2 tiles. This is a forest tile that produces wood. And this is the mountain tile that produces stone. So we're going to start with those 2 as sort of the center of our village, and we'll expand out from there as we play. We also need to place our score tracker, which has a 60 on the back side, but we're going to place it face down over here on the 0 spot. And place this stick, this is the round tracker, out here on round 1, just like that. Then filling up for round 1, you'll see that everything to the right side of that stick as we play will always be filled with B tiles, and everything to the left side of that stick will always be filled with A tiles. So to start the game right now, I need to place out 3 B tiles in a row, just like that. And finally, the last thing we need for setup is our resource cubes for the game. And those resources are wood, stone, wheat, coal, and sheep. And with that, we are all set up for the game. My Total Town is going to play out over a series of 4 rounds. And as you can see here at the bottom of the board, each of the 4 rounds will have 4 phases in it. And those 4 phases are going to be production, construction, transportation, and processing. And it's going to happen the same way in all 4 rounds, except you can notice here on the board there's this little infinity symbol with a loop. That means in the final round of the game, we can repeat the transportation and production step as many times as we'd like to in that final round of the game. So I want to quickly walk you through those 4 phases, and then I'll go ahead and play the first round and actually show you exactly how each of those 4 phases work. In the production phase, you're going to look at all of the tiles in your village. And any tile that has a blue arrow like this at the bottom is going to produce whatever resources are marked on that tile, placing them in those sort of grayed out squares on that tile. So I'll go ahead and do that actually right away. My forest is producing 5 wood, like that. And my mountain produces 3 stone, like that. Next, we move into the construction or the building phase. And this is when we're going to be spending resources from anywhere in our village to buy any of these sort of fancy buildings, these sort of standard buildings, or to build tracks. And this is sort of where the meat of the game is going to come in, because the point of this game is that we're supposed to be building our town out in such a way that we are producing goods, and the goods that we are producing can then be transported to some kind of processing facility that might either change those goods into other goods, or resources, I guess, and then further change those resources into points. So we're trying to make a sort of productive village that makes a certain resource, converts those resources, and ultimately sort of sells off those goods for money, or in this case, points. To do that, any building that we want to purchase, we simply need to pay the cost in the corner of the tile. So for example, if I wanted to build this field, which is going to be a production that gives me 1 wheat every turn, I simply have to spend 1 green or 1 wood cube. Likewise, if I wanted to build this large ranch right here, I would have to spend 2 stone resources. And there are a variety of different building types that we're going to see in the game. I've already showed you the blue production buildings, and all of the other buildings are basically associated with other phases of the game, aside from 2 that I'll explain in just a minute. But obviously there are no buildings that activate in the building phase, because the building phase is all about building things. Transportation is going to be focused on the tracks, which I will talk about in just a minute. And then finally, the production phase is marked by these gear icons. So for example, this bread store or this bakery is a production building that's going to convert a wheat and coal into points. And in order to do that, you're going to have to, in the transportation phase, which comes after building, move these resources into the available spaces on this tile, and then exchange those or spend them back to the supply for those points. But what that means is I can never do this more than twice in a single round, because I can only hold a maximum of 4 cubes based on the 4 spaces on that tile. Likewise, something like this large ranch here is going to give me points based on 1 wood, 1 wheat, and 1 sheep. And I'll trade those in for 13. So again, I could only have 2 sets in a single round because there are only 6 squares on that tile. The other symbols you see, and actually I just realized I lied to you because there are some tiles that activate during the transportation phase. This tile will activate during the transportation phase, but I can't really explain what this does until first I explain how movement works. But before I do that, let me talk about first these yellow tiles. You'll see the yellow tiles have a small lightning bolt on them. What this does is simply give you whatever that is as soon as you build that building, and then never again in the game. So this will simply get me 2 sheep as soon as I place this out, because I guess there are just sheep wandering in the meadow that I've added to my town. Or in the case of this tile right here, this is actually going to give me 2 immediate wheat and then produce 1 wheat per turn in subsequent rounds. The other symbol that you do see out here on the board are these pink symbols like this. And these pink symbols are simply end game scoring. So if I have sheep in this ranch, for each sheep I have here, I will score 3 points. And then if I fill it all the way up with 8 sheep, I would get an additional 6 points for completely filling the ranch. So let's go back to transportation. After I have built my buildings, I then move into the transportation phase. And that's where I need to move my resources to the processing buildings that they need to be at, so that in the processing phase of the round, I can turn them into either different resources or ultimately into points. And in order to do that, I need to make sure that the building that holds the resources and the building that's going to process the resources are connected by a track. Simply being adjacent to another building does not mean they are connected. So these 2 buildings are not connected together. I would need to build 2 tracks to connect them if I'd want them to be connected together. That said, if there is a track to a building, for example, if I placed this track, and then I placed this meadow, and then I placed another track, and I placed, say, for example, this field, all of these are now connected. I can go through another location along the path to a second location. So these 2 are not adjacent, but as long as we can continue a track through another building, a single building, then this would be fine. If there were 2 buildings in between these tracks, that cuts off the track because, again, adjacent buildings do not count as connected. And the way that tracks work are, you can see here printed in the top left corner, the cost is either 1 wood or 1 stone. And once I've placed out a track on a subsequent turn, I can upgrade that track by again spending 1 wood or 1 stone to upgrade it to the sort of combined track. The only rule is that when I flip it over, the things that were connected before I flipped it are still connected after I flip that track. I can also buy directly, as you can see in this corner. If I just spend 2 wood or 2 stone or a combination of 1 of each, I can instantly build one of these combination tracks instead of upgrading at a later point. Then finally, at the end of each round, this wooden stick is going to slide over. But before doing that in a solo game, I will need to choose one of these special buildings to remove from the game, and then 2 of A or B, or a combination of A and B, also from the game. Once I've done that, I will slide this stick down 1 space, filling in everything to the left with A tiles and everything to the right with B tiles. Should I ever have too many B tiles, they will simply go back on top of the stack of B tiles. They won't be removed from the game for any reason. Now let me very quickly go through all of the tiles that are currently available for purchase. The 2 fields allow me simply to produce 1 wheat. The meadows instantly produce 2 sheep and then never again. The charcoal factory is going to turn wood into coal. The bread store or the bakery is going to turn wheat and coal into points. The ranch at the end of the game is going to give me points for as many sheep as I can fit in there. The sort of big city square is going to score me 2 points for every different resource that is surrounding that building at the end of the game. And that doesn't mean resource cubes, that means resources that are printed on the tiles in all of the 8 spaces around that tile. This sort of unexplored area over here is going to produce 2 sheep per round. This harvest area is going to give me instantly 2 wheat and then will produce 1 wheat for every round after that. This one here will allow me to move goods from one tile to this, from any tile to this tile without being connected by tracks. So this is like a collection spot where they're collecting goods, and it doesn't need to come by track. So this is almost like a teleporter that will help me get goods moved around when I don't have enough resources to build tracks to connect everything. This farm will produce 1 wheat and 1 sheep every turn, or every round. The smoker is going to take 2 coal and 1 sheep to produce 11 points. And finally, the large ranch will be scoring 11 points for sets of wood, wheat, and sheep. So with that, let me go ahead and get into my gameplay. I've already done the first production phase. So now we need to start building. And I need to start looking at what I can score on. I can score on wheat and coal fairly easily. I can turn wood into coal and I could buy wheat. So if I wanted to, I could start focusing on this sort of wheat and coal engine to start scoring 6 points each. I also see, if I am focused on that coal engine, that if I had more coal, I can start collecting a little bit of sheep to score big points from the smoker. And that would be nice to have the wheat and sheep in that case, because the wheat and sheep would be working on both of those buildings. I'm clearly not going to have enough to start buying all of those things yet, but I can start planning ahead a little bit. So I am going to take this farm because it gets me both the wheat from this and a continuous sheep, which would be helpful for lots of different things. It's a big cost, but that's 3 wood to take that one. And that is going to place, I need that to place somewhere that's going to connect into resources or into parts of my town that will process things later on. I also need to make sure this connects into whatever else I'm working on. So I think next I'm going to spend 1 stone to build the, not yet. Not yet. I'm going to spend 2 stone. Yeah, 2 stone to build a combination track. No, not yet. I don't need to do that. Hold on. Let me save 1 stone. Spending 1 stone to build a straight track like this. And then I'm going to spend 1 more stone to build that charcoal spot. And then new building came out in the meantime. This is a carpenter. And a carpenter, if I build the carpenter, again, I must have lied to you because there are buildings that activate during the building phase. If I have this in my town, anytime I build around this tile, means any of the 8 spaces that are either orthogonally or diagonally adjacent to this tile will cost 1 wood or 1 stone less to build. So right now I have 1 green and 1 stone left. And I think rather than wasting wood resources that I want to turn into coal, I am instead going to spend 1 more stone to connect a track this way. Because eventually I'm going to upgrade this track into a double track to connect this one and this one into my bakery that I hope to build on a future turn. So we'll stop there for right now. So now we move into transportation. I'm going to move this wood along the track to the bread bakery, and then moving into the processing turn or processing phase, I'm going to turn that 2 wood into 2 coal. And that's the end of the round. Didn't score anything that round, but we did do quite a bit of setup, so that will be nice. Then, moving to the next round, I have to get rid of one of these V buildings. I'm looking at coal. I want to focus on coal. So I'm going to get rid of that big ranch, which now gets us a sake factory or a sake distillery that scores off of stone and 2 wheat, making 10 points. And then I need to get rid of 2 tiles from here somewhere. And I'm going to say that I don't know that I'm ever going to need that much sheep or that much wheat, but there's lots of potential for instant sheep if I'm not banking on sheep. However, if this is using 1 sheep every time, and I do want that, I will want more sheep later, but yeah, not that much. I'm going to say I don't need the movement one because I'll just be smart with tracks, and if that comes back to bite me later, so be it. And also, I don't know if I want to spend a wood and a stone to not spend a wood or a stone in the future, so I'm going to get rid of that carpenter as well. which means these buildings will slide down here. This shifts like that, and we reveal one more A tile, which now reveals a brewery where I can trade 2 wheat for 5 points, and a sort of coal mine that will instantly produce, not instantly, sorry, will produce in the production phase 2 coal. That would be nice to have if I'm gonna get that building. All right, then we start with production. I get 5 wood again. I get 3 stone again. And over here I get 1 wheat and 1 sheep, like that. Then I need to connect this to the world. I need to put the bakery there. I need to find another way to get more wheat. Need to find another way to get more wheat, which is likely going to be one of those, because I don't need a lot unless I am aiming for making sake or making beer. I'd love to get this, but I also want to make sure I have some greens left to turn into coal as well. All right, then I absolutely need to buy that bakery, which means I cannot get the sake this round. But that's okay because I won't be producing, or sorry, not sake, the smoker this round, which is fine because I won't have enough charcoal until the next round anyway. So yes, I'm gonna spend 2 stone to buy that bakery there. Then I absolutely want to build this charcoal or coal mine for sure. I'm gonna place that here. And actually give me a second because I want to shift everything on camera so it fits on the screen better. Then, I'm not too worried about having a lot of coal because I can only spend 1 right now because I only have 1 of those. In the meantime, I absolutely, without thinking, have to do this or I won't score that building at all. So I connect those now. So this wheat and 1 of those coal will work at my bakery. But if I turn those 2 into coal and those 2 into coal, that's 4 coal. Then 2 goes here and 2 goes there. I don't have enough wheat for that though. And I won't have any space for sheep there unless I move that somewhere, and I can't right now because nothing that I have can hold sheep, which is a little bit of a problem. Yeah, that's fine because I'm only going to be able to buy or get points for 1 thing there. So, yeah, I want to stop there because I do want to keep that coal. All right, so then I'm going to move both of these here because it can hold them. I'm going to move this wheat here. This is transportation. The greens are going to move here, and unfortunately the sheep stays there because there's no buildings that accept sheep. We move into processing. This wheat and this coal will become 6 points. Like that. And these 2 wood will become to charcoal. Just like that. So that's the end of the round we need to clear off. I don't want to lose that because I definitely want that to happen. So I'm going to lose this building, which reveals the steel mill, which is going to use stone and coal to get me 6 points. And then again, getting rid of 2 right here. End game scoring consideration could be good. I'm not going to have a whole lot of extra wheat, I would imagine. Yeah. So I don't really care about that, and I don't care about producing 3 extra wheat each round. So we're going to get rid of these 2, like that. We reset for the next round, which means I need to move this over 1, but there are 2 B buildings. So this is actually going to go back up on top of there. This will slide back over. This slides over like this. And we've revealed 2 new spaces. And the new buildings that we've revealed now are the public baths, which use 2 charcoal for 5 points, which might be nice as a late game thing because I'm going to have extra charcoal, but I want my charcoal going there, so probably not. And the well, which is going to give me 2 points instantly and then 1 point production. I'm not so thrilled with, if I build that right now, I get 2 points. And then in round 4, I get 1 point. So that's 3 points for 1 stone. It might be worth it if I have an extra stone. Or more likely in the last round, if I have an extra stone, that's 2 points for a stone. But we'll see what happens. Then we start round 3, doing production. So again, starting with 5 pieces of wood coming from my forest. 3 stone coming from my mountain. Now this should produce a wheat and a sheep, but there's only 2 slots. So for right now, I'm only producing 1 wheat. I could choose a sheep, but I want the wheat. Then here, getting to coal. And we move into, again, to the building phase. All right, so I want to make sure that I get this one for sure this round. But I need to connect it to those buildings. So, I need 2 stone for sure. I'd like to save at least 2 green to turn to coal next time, leaving me with 3 more greens. A green and a gray makes me that. Then I can't connect everything together. Yeah, no. I might save 1 more green. I don't need that many sheep. Get more coal. Score more points that way. Well, let me set this up first. So I'm going to spend a green. We'll see what I spend later to build one of these straight things here. I'm going to need to flip it to connect that, but I don't know whether I want to use a green or a gray, so I'm going to hold off. I just need to put that there so I can build something here. Then I can spend 2 stone to place that smoker here. And now I get a gray, gold, black. I mean stone, wheat, and coal, or a sort of stone kiln store, I guess like some kind of pottery store, or like a brick oven bakery kind of a place. There is some bread on the sign, so some kind of brick oven bakery. Getting me 11 points for those goods. Or this gets me 6 for a stone and a coal, which could be nice because I might have a lot of that left at the end. Which means, yeah, let's get that. All right, so I'm going to use a stone and a green to place something. Hold on a minute. I want that, but I'm trying to figure out how it's going to connect into anything else without being in the way. It means I'm going to have to connect to stone somehow. But that stone also needs to connect to that, and that's not going to happen. Yeah, hold on. I'm going to hold off on that because I'm going to get rid of one and keep the other. So I'm actually going to hold off on that. I'm going to use that stone to flip that street or that track. And I think we're going to stop there this time. Yeah, I'm going to stop there. And then we'll start moving things around. One of these comes here. This one comes here. I'm going to need more wheat if I want more points from that. Hold on. Do I want to buy a wheat field right now? No, because I won't produce wheat anyway. But I will for the next round. All right, then actually I'm spending 1 more of those. 2. All right, hold on a minute. Yeah, I need to figure out a place that both stone and wheat can fit, can get there through all of this stuff. And yeah, I don't think I can do that very easily. I can, but this stone is a problem. Yeah, we'll see about the stone, but I definitely want a wheat. So I'm just going to place that somewhere. Huh. Yeah, I'm just going to place that up here and we'll see what happens. 1, 2, 3, hold on. If I place this out here, no, that takes too much close stuff to get there. 1, 2, 3. There's no green there. 3. Yeah, it's not going to matter. And getting that stone connected is going to be a problem. So I'm just going to stick that there, like that. All right, now we are stopping. Those got moved like I did already. That sheep comes here. Those come here. And just to get this out of here so I can fit more things, it doesn't matter. There's still space. So these 3 green go here. Those 3 green become charcoal, like that. This coal and wheat gets me 6 points to 12. And this 2 coal and a sheep gets me 11 points to 23, like that. And I need to really work on getting some sheep, but I can buy one of these instant sheep next turn. That's the end of the round. I need to get rid of things. I'm not going to have extra wheat, so we will get rid of that, which gets me a butcher that scores off of coal and sheep. All right, well that's interesting. No, because I'm not going to have any extra coal. I have 1 extra coal. And, oh, you know what? I will have 1 extra sheep. That might be better than that, and that'll be easier to connect. Cool. Then I got to get rid of 2 things in here. Production's not going to mean anything for me moving forward, and I don't care about instant wheat. So that goes away. Like that. This slides over. These shift down. And the new buildings we have are a spring that will instantly give me 2 of anything. That's pretty cool. Or this one here, the breeding ground, which would have been cool early. It gets me 2 sheep, and then it gives me 2 sheep instantly, and then 1 every production phase. But this is our last production phase, so I'm not going to care about that. Anyway, let's maximize some points because we're doing real low on points right now. But this could be a big round if we work hard. Then I definitely need sheep. I like that, but before I get ahead of myself, let's produce 5 wood, there, 3 stone, here, 2 coal here, a wheat and a sheep in the middle here in the farm, and then 1 more wheat up in the fields, like that. So I've got 6, 7. I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coal for what I've got already. I've got 2 of those. I've got 1 of those. I need 1 sheep. In order to maximize in 1 production phase, or 1 processing phase, sorry, these 2 things, I need 1 sheep and I have 1 extra coal. But the cool thing up at the end of the game is that we can continue running the processing and transport. So if I want to make more things and then make more things, I can do something with that. So I want to have both this one and this one, no, this one, because they're going to get me extra points. And then I need to connect everything together. So let's see what we can do. I need sheep. All right, so I am going to, this is already connected. Perfect. I want to put a double thing there. Let's see, I need a green and a gray for my meat, my butcher. I need a green and a gray for my sheep. And I need a gray for my stone, for my bath. Means, yeah, I'm not gonna score this one after all. Hold on, so then I don't need that gray. Green and a gray, a green and a gray, and a green and a gray gets me sheep. And that, then I don't connect anything. 2 charcoal gets me 5 points. Charcoal and sheep gets me 7 points. If I do 4, that's 10 points. If I build that, that's just 7. The problem is, I have to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to build everything I need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 leaves me 1 green cube, which gets 1 coal, which doesn't produce anything there. Because I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That doesn't cut it. So there's no reason to buy that. So instead, I'm going to get a well. Wait a minute. Or, that gets me 5 points. This is sheep. This is butcher. Those I'm definitely spending. And I need 2 for a road. Then nothing else connects. So yeah, no, that's it. Okay. I think I'm gonna have an extra charcoal. All right, so let's do this. We need first off 2 for a road. So I'm gonna spend 2 greens to build this road like this right here. Then a green and a gray to get to sheep instantly from the meadows. Like that. And then another green and a gray, or a stone and a wood to build the butcher shop, which now opens up the market, which would let me spend 3 of anything for 9 points. That's cool, but that's not happening right now. And then I've got a green and a gray left, but I can't connect to any more tracks. So my answer then has to be, I spend that gray to instantly buy this, doesn't matter where it goes, and that will instantly score me 2 points, 1, 2 to 25, and that's it. So now we go into transportation. I'm gonna send 1 sheep through the network here. This sheep comes here, this sheep comes here. 2 black cubes go here. Hold on, not yet. Not from there yet. 1 black cube goes here from this one. 1 and 2 go through my network to get to here. It's not gonna matter, there's plenty of space anyway. These 2 black come here. Oh, wait a minute. I need that green. Backing up 1 step, I just realized I never connected that one. That's what that final green piece did for me. This goes here, this goes here, and this one goes through everything to come down there. And now we trade everything in for points. 2 sets of yellow and black, or wheat and coal, gets me 12 points, 27, 37. 2 sets of double coal and a sheep get me 11 points each for 22. Gets me 49. 1, 2 is 51 and 61, flipping over my chip. And then finally, the last pair of coal and sheep gets me 7 points for a grand total of 67 points. I mean, I didn't do wonderfully, but I was efficient. I don't have any wasted components behind. So looking at my score and checking the score table in the rule book, I have cleared the 60-point threshold for the sort of second level of win, which says ichomae, which is sort of like becoming an adult or growing up in society, which is not great. My high score thus far was 85 or so, but it's better than the lowest threshold, so I'll call that a minor win. So as I am down here, I do like to take a look at the components when I am done a game. Everything here you see is basically the components are this board, tiles, and the resources. The resources are just standard cubes, nothing against them. The colors are nice, the colors are clear, which resource is which, I like that. On the tiles though, a little bit, sometimes it's at a quick glance, sometimes difficult to distinguish between the gray and the black, but it's not horrible, it's just, it takes a little bit of looking sometimes if you see a lot of gray or a lot of black in a row, what colors they are. But for the most part, the colors work on these resources. Now, granted, these could be deluxe resources and you could get shaped meeples for all of them. Those already exist in the world though, so if I wanted to buy them extra and sort of bling out my copy, I could do that. I don't fault them for cubes. I like wooden cubes. They're fun to play with. They're reasonable and they sort of work nice and feel nice in your hand, so no complaints from me there. The artwork on the tiles, let me show you some of the buildings. and locations up close. Very, very cute, very charming artwork in this game. I do really love the look of this game. Now, the last couple of games I've reviewed from these designers were sort of remade editions of their games that had fancier artwork and were a little bit more advanced, but this is one of their self-published games, so it doesn't have that, but I do love the charm of the look of their self-published games as well. Very cute, very basic, but the colors work, the iconography works very well. Everything makes sense. Everything looks really cute and really cool together. I do like the way it looks with all of the different tracks connecting all of the pieces together. The scoreboard, I'm not a huge fan of the snaking scoreboard just because sometimes it gets confusing about which way you're going around the track, but realistically this is a clockwise scoreboard. It just loops so that they could fit more score in a small space. Now, also the flipping at 60 seems a little weird. They could have made it a little bit bigger or less cluttered and gone up to 50 instead of 60. Now, I don't know. I don't think I'm ever going to get to 120 points, but as you saw on the solo score thresholds, there is a 120 level, so they probably figured out what the sort of high score possibility was and built the track around that. So I can't fault them for it because there clearly is some thinking behind it. That's basically it for the components. Now, generally, I do also like to take a look at the insert for games. This is a fairly small box game, but there is no insert. And for the most part, this game came with no baggies for any of the tiles either. Luckily, I had a lot of my own bags, so I did bag everything together. But this is a game that's sort of screaming out for even just a fan-made sort of foam insert for the box. But while I'm here, I do want to point out something that I do really like, and this is, of course, assuming you can read Japanese, but all of the sides of the box are basically, I don't know if that's focusing, it's kind of shiny. All of the sides of the box are player aids, basically. Yeah, that's not focusing. So we've got the different types of tiles, the different types of resources, what the symbols mean on some of the tiles, and again, I can't tell if this is focusing, I apologize if not. But both of the short sides of the boxes show the tile types and the resource types, or at least the symbol types. And both of the long sides of the box give some description about what some of the sort of scoring symbols and other weird symbols on the tiles mean. So that means that both sides of the table get sort of two of these aimed towards them if you put this in the middle of the table. And I think that's pretty cool. They didn't have to print out a player aid, although the game does also come with a double-sided player aid for all of the different tiles with a description of what each tile does. So this is the basic buildings and the A side, or the A buildings, and these are the B and V buildings. So there's definitely lots of player aid and lots of help in this game, but ultimately most of the symbology is very straightforward. And even the weird symbology, after you've played a few times, it's really not that bad. With all that said, meet me back up top and I'll let you know what I think about the game itself. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is now the third game from Shun and Aya that I reviewed, following my reviews of Frontiers with Brownies and Firm with Brownies. And this is another one in that series that sort of takes traditional sort of standard game mechanisms and plays with them in fun, different little ways. And I could almost say that this one is kind of like a combination of the other two plus. So if you haven't seen the other videos of mine that I did cover on their games, I definitely recommend that you go check them out, but I'll talk about them real quickly here. First, Firm with Brownies was a sort of card hand management game in which you're sort of getting resources and trading those resources for better resources and then using those resources to buy buildings, or then using those buildings to change those resources into different things or sell them to get money / points. Then Frontier with Brownies is a tile laying game where you're laying out tiles to sort of a la Carcassonne build out a tableau or a world of stuff. And then each time you play, you get different sort of goal or bonus cards that you're trying to accomplish certain things. The number of animals that you've got in the area on the board, or certain shapes that you've made, or the number of completed cities or connected roads, or different pieces of land connecting water. But basically it's a tile laying game that you're scoring based on how the tiles are placed out. And now you've got this game that's sort of like a tile laying game that is important how things are laid out, plus this resource management, turn things into different resources, into goods, into points. And then kind of put together plus then adding on this sort of root building idea of connecting everything together with these tracks. And this is a really cool idea, and there has to be other games that have done this, but none that I know of specifically. And it kind of surprises me that more people haven't done this idea of production and then change into something and then sell things with the added step that the things that you make have to get to where they need to go to become the things that they're going to become, to then get to where they need to go to be sold at market to get money. And this idea that all of that is contained in this little game, that I'm actually building this world that's making stuff out of things that they're also producing, and also making sure that there are roads, or in this case, cart tracks that connect everything together to make sure that this whole network runs and works the way that it does. And it has to happen in the right order. If I don't have the right resources, I can't produce the next level of resources. If I haven't already produced the next level of resources, I can't get them to the place to make the money or to make the goods that I sell for money later on. And I really have to think about the order that things get done, how they're connected, but not just how they're connected, but when they're connected. Is it more important to start early, just getting a bunch of stuff and then connecting it all up later? Is it more important to connect some things early so I get a small engine generating some points while I'm working on the long-term goals? There's a lot going on in a very, very small package here. And I'm very pleased with what I see here. Now, granted, it's not the deepest of games. It is fairly simple and straightforward. But it just, again, from Shun and Aya, makes me so blown away is too big, but blown away by how they can take such a sort of real-world concept, or a really normal concept that makes a whole lot of sense, and turn each step of that concept into game. And make it just flow and feel as if it is showing you something that you're actually doing, and it's actually representing, the gameplay is representing what it's actually showing, or what it's actually making you accomplish in-game. What I'm saying here then is that the theme here really works because you're actually doing the things that you're supposed to be doing as you play the game. So let me talk more specifically, because I am kind of talking very vague here about everything, but the way that this game plays out to me is very, very unique, but very obvious. I don't know how else to say it. It seems like it should have been made like this before many times, and I don't know of a game like that that does. So correct me if I'm wrong. Leave some comments down below if you know some other games that do this, but let me talk about what I love about this game. First off, we're starting off with just 2 resources, 5 pieces of wood and 3 pieces of stone, and we need to turn that into a village that makes all kinds of things, and then it ultimately makes lots of points. But how you do that is very, very interesting, because your resources are pretty limited, and there are very few buildings or very few tiles that will give you any more wood. So that 5 wood, maybe 6 or 7 wood, is pretty much all you're going to have each round. And that wood is going to be used to build buildings. That wood is going to be used to build tracks that connect those buildings. That wood is going to often be used to turn into coal, like we did in this game at that charcoal kiln. So that 5 pieces of wood is really going to need to get you far. And then you've got 3 pieces of stone. Now granted, those pieces of stone can also be used to make tracks. So if you really want to focus on that wood engine, you can use the stone to build some stuff. Some of the buildings will be built with only stone, but most of the buildings that use stone also use a little bit of wood. As you'd expect when you build buildings, there's usually wood involved. But starting with just these 8 resources and turning it into an engine that can make lots of points by the end of the game is a really interesting decision here. Because if you spend too many resources on buildings or tiles, you don't have enough resources to spend on tracks. And if I've got all these buildings that are producing resources, and I don't have any way to get those resources to the buildings that need to convert them into other things and ultimately into points, I can't score any points. But then if I spend a ton of money or resources on building out my track system, then I don't have enough resources left to build the buildings that I need to actually generate the resources and sort of process those resources into things. So there's this really cool balancing game about how many resources do I use to buy things, like buildings? How many resources do I use to connect those buildings together? How efficiently can I connect those buildings together to save as many resources as possible? And then, how can I manage to hold on to some of those resources so that I may be able to convert those resources into something else. Because if I spend all of my wood on building or tracks, I don't have any wood left to convert into coal with that coal building. So then what? So there's this interesting balance of how to do that. And then timing is super important because production happens at the beginning of the round. So after I build all the buildings, I don't produce anything new until the next round. And then also, I can only move and process once every round except for the final round. And the final round is sort of just a cleanup so I don't waste a bunch of stuff. But that means that if my resources are moving from a pure resource to convert into bigger, better resources building, that's the end of the chain for that round. Means if I have wood that I need to change to coal to turn it into points, that takes 2 rounds for sure because they're going to move to turn into coal one round and move to turn into points the next round. So I need to plan ahead that that's going to happen. So if I don't get the timing down right, then I'm in trouble. But I also know that that means I don't need to connect that coal to that scoring building until a future round when it's going to start moving. So that means in early rounds I can focus more on buildings. And then in late rounds I can focus more on tracks. But if I wait too late to focus on tracks, then I'm missing out on some points early. And if I spend too much on buildings and don't get enough tracks, then late game I might not have enough tracks to connect everything. So this balance of what do I do, and then also the timing aspects of when do I do it, because there's only 4 rounds in the game, is really, really interesting to me. And the way that the tracks lay out, that they can go through other buildings, but 2 buildings next to each other don't talk to each other at all, is very interesting. Because if I place 2 things to each other, that means I need 2 tracks to connect them together because I have to loop back on it. So I never want to put 2 buildings together unless they have nothing to do with each other. So the spatial aspect of where things go is very interesting as well. But then there's also that tile I showed you in my playthrough this time that allows me to sort of teleport goods into it from somewhere else. Only 4 though, so if I have too many, remember we can only move once per round. If I have more than 4, that tile doesn't work anymore. So there's just so much interesting things to think about every time you play this game. What do I do? How do I do it? And just try to run this engine. I really, really, really enjoy how simple and pure the mechanisms of this game are, but yet how many decisions come out of it. And that's largely because of the different kinds of tiles and how many different kinds of point scoring buildings there are. How many different kinds of interactions. You didn't see there are a lot of buildings that score based off tiles that are around other things. So I can set up a bunch of tiles and drop a building in the middle and I just score based on what's there rather than having to move points around. So then I can turn it into a completely different game and I'm focusing on this spatial puzzle instead of this sort of delivery, distribution, processing puzzle. It's just really cool to see how much comes out of such a smooth and simple design in this game. Now, the solo mode. How does the solo mode play? The solo mode play is basically I'm just playing the game and every round I'm throwing out a couple of buildings. Is it the greatest solo mode? No, because I'm not really playing against anybody, but it works really well and it still feels really fun. And I am still really aiming to increase my score every time I play. The problem for me with the solo mode being nobody I'm playing against is, yes, there's randomness in how the tiles come out, but you're starting with the same starting buildings. Again, yes, I'm picking which 7 of those starting buildings I use, but there's only 6 different types. So it's kind of just the sort of distribution of how many things are available to me. And what that means is the game has the potential to, and I say this very strongly, has the potential to be very similar every time you play the game. So if you're looking for a lot of variability to come at you out of the game, it's not really going to happen here because that only happens from the randomness of the tiles and from the 7 tiles you pick at the beginning of the game. And you will see a lot of the same things come out. You will see some different scoring buildings come out. So there is some variability based on what scoring comes out because ultimately you want to make your village do whatever it needs to do to score based on the scoring conditions that you can potentially add to your village. Granted, that's true. But it's up to you as a player to try new things in the solo mode of this game. Because in the multiplayer game I've never played yet, I really, really want to, and I definitely will at some point. But in the multiplayer game, when you're playing against somebody else, what that means is every time somebody else takes a turn, they're removing a building that they want. Which means that the buildings that are disappearing are connected to each other in some way. The buildings that are disappearing are not just randomly disappearing, and me as the player is not deciding what's going away. Somebody else is. So somebody else is making smart decisions about removing tiles, which means there might be a tile I'm aiming for, and suddenly it's gone because somebody else took it. And if I'm watching somebody else, then I can buy that tile early just so that they don't get it before I get it, and make sure that I put it in my town. And that adds another element of pressure to that timing cycle. And can I get it at the right time? Can I push my luck to get it in a later round? And seeing that in a multiplayer game, or at least thinking about that in a multiplayer game, makes it seem that much more interesting multiplayer. In solo, because I'm choosing the tiles that are going away, unless I make a concerted effort to change the way I'm playing every time, I have the very good likelihood to sort of fall into a rut and keep kind of doing the same things. Yes, there are different kinds of scoring buildings, but I might always start the game by getting a wheat, getting the building that processes wood into coal, getting the building that scores on wheat and coal. Those are all starting buildings. There's a starting engine. If I do that every single time, the game gets samey after a while. That said, there are 2 other setups in the book that are recommended, and on top of the balanced setup that I used this time. And of course, you can always create your own random setup of those 6 starting tiles and 7 pieces, however you want to. But the 2 other setups are a sort of wheat-heavy strategy and a sheep-heavy strategy. I haven't tried the wheat-heavy strategy yet, and I will. But I did play with the sheep-heavy strategy, and that starts with, I believe, 4 of those meadows that give you 2 sheep once instantly, and 3 of the ranches that hold sheep. And basically, you're just doing everything you can to produce as many sheep and score in any way you can based off of sheep. And I tried that, and it felt way different, and it felt really good. And I will tell you also, the playthrough you just watched me play, I tried some new things. And actually, at that time, I was kind of pushed by the tiles that were coming out of the game. So there's definitely some level of variability in the random tiles that come out. But know that if you're playing this game solo, you kind of have to challenge yourself to try different things, to score in different ways, or the game could become samey. And I do kind of cross my fingers that these guys will put out an expansion for this, because just one extra addition to this, or just one more set of tiles added to this, could change that variability up in a great way that would push this game even further. But let me say, as a solo, this game is a lot of fun. I enjoy the beat your own score mode in this. Just know that you will have to push yourself to try different strategies, or it could become samey. And if that's not something that sounds interesting to you, this might not be for you solo. Multiplayer doesn't seem to have that problem because, again, you're playing against smart players who are taking tiles away from you, whether or not you need them. And that seems like it would sort of alleviate that a little bit. But with that said, again, this is a sort of wonderful, smart design based off of very simple, pure mechanisms that when it all comes together in a really awesome package in a pretty small box. I'm very, very pleased with this one. This is now the 3rd game from Shun and Aya that I've reviewed. This is now the 3rd game from Shun and Aya that I love. And this is now the 3rd game from Shun and Aya that maintains a position in my collection. Big recommend from me on this one. Just so you know, I did pick this up from Amazon Japan. Because it's self-published, the copies come and go in a sort of wavy pattern. Sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not for a long time. But it does ship to America from Amazon Japan. So if you want this one, keep an eye there and you might be able to grab yourself a copy. I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that you enjoyed it. And as always, if you did, I do ask that you like, subscribe, and click the bell icon below. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks.